Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Ken Coburn. I am the commander here at the Abington American Legion, and it is my honor to be your master of ceremonies today. First person I'd like to bring up to the stage for the Purple Heart ceremony is our town veteran agent, Adam Gunn.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Thank you for being here. Today, before I get started, I'd like to recognize a few honored guests we have. Senator Keenan, State Representative Allison Sullivan could not be here due to a brand new baby. So, and baby girl. Thank you, Captain Mullen, our agent Shipling here. And we have Kevin Donovan and Alex Haggerty from Abington Selective. Thank you both for being here today. Abington is very blessed and grateful to have such incredible veteran organizations to support and ensure we never forget the countless sacrifices of our military. Thank you to everyone for coming today to help us recognize and honor our Purple Heart recipients, past and present. Most of us, myself included, will never be able to fully understand or comprehend what it means to fight in direct combat for our precious liberties. For those that received a Purple Heart, I've been told it's a very heavy medal, one that holds the weight and the suffering of those the battlefield memories for the rest of their lives. Many still carry fragments of war in their bodies to this day, as a permanent scar they must remember forever. The Purple Heart is the oldest active military medal in the United States. George Washington established the Purple Heart, which is known as the Badge of Military Merit, 241 years ago, on August 7th, 1782. It wasn't until 1932 that General Douglas MacArthur renamed the Badge of Merit to what we know it as today. The Purple Heart is reserved for service members who were wounded or killed in action. It's also worth mentioning that the Purple Heart is the highest award that's automatically given to any officer or enlisted person as soon as the criteria is met, meaning there is no proposal or review like other Valor or Merit awards, and it can be awarded multiple times for wounds received on separate occasions. We have heroes today among us who are recipients of one or more Purple Hearts, and what a true honor it is to be standing here with you. Thank you for being here. We also remember too many others that were awarded for being killed in action, and we must take time to recognize and give respect to our Gold Star families, for immediate family members of our fallen service members who died while serving in time of conflict, many of whom were also Purple Heart recipients. So again, I thank you. On this day, we pay tribute to the men and women who have suffered and sacrificed so much for our great nation.
Now, if you're able, will you please stand and join me with the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by the national anthem and the invocation led by the Reverend Dr. Christy Colburn.
Will you join with me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And again, remain standing for the national anthem.
Sorry.
will you join with me in prayer?
Come up.
Holy God, we are grateful to be gathered here today to celebrate Abington as a Purple Heart town. While earning a Purple Heart is not in and of itself a celebration for our brave veterans, we are here today to celebrate the freedom, liberty, and love that each of them has shared with us and with their country. Be with us now in our remembering, in our celebrating, and in our honoring. Let us join together and say, Amen.
Amen.
You may be seated. I'm going to bring Reverend Dr. Christy Coburn back up to the podium for a few words.
So I'm going to maybe end up repeating a little bit of what Adam shared, but each year on August 7th, our nation recognizes the men and women who are known as our Purple Heart recipients. The Purple Heart is one of the oldest military decorations and is presented to service members who were injured or killed in service to our country. There are an estimated 1.8 million Purple Heart recipients. The Purple Heart is not your typical military award. A service member who has received a Purple Heart has been injured in combat in some physical way. A service member who receives a Purple Heart has been physically hurt while fighting an enemy in order to preserve our freedom. This means living with a scar, that mark that remains even after a wound has healed. The scars with which our Purple Heart recipients live may be physical, maybe there's something visible on the outside of their body, or maybe something on the inside, like a piece of shrapnel or a bullet. But these scars hold more than just a physical reminder of the wound. They are also an emotional reminder of all that the service member has been through. They are a spiritual reminder of how the service member's faith helped him or her through a difficult experience. They are a psychological reminder of the pain of war that all of our veterans know all too well. And for those service members who died from the very wounds that earned them the Purple Heart, the emotional, spiritual, and psychological reminders are endured by the family, friends, and communities who grieve the deaths of these heroes. And those scars are sacred because they represent something we treasure. They represent faithful service, great sacrifice, and loyal dedication. They represent the honor, commitment, courage, care, and love for our country and its citizens, and for our world, held by each of our Purple Heart recipients. And for that, we are forever grateful. So at this time, I have the honor of saying the names of Abington's Purple Heart recipients. Please keep in mind that this is probably not a complete list. And actually, can I have the program? I have a couple of corrections I want to make before I even read the list. So first, you'll see we have several categories: living recipients, and then people who survived their injuries during the war but are now deceased, and then our killed in action list. So I have one person to add under our living recipients, and I'm going to add his name in just a moment. And then I want to just let you know that the Jack Murphy you see under survived injuries but now deceased is actually J. Edward Murphy. So apologies to the Murphy family for that confusion. This is what happens when we have juniors and seniors. It gets all mixed up. And so that was our error because I thought we had a Jack Murphy and a Jack Murphy Jr., but apparently we have a J. Edward Murphy and a Jack Murphy who somehow are senior and junior. But anyways, just wanted to clarify that before I read this list. And I appreciate the Murphy family's lightheartedness about that error. So in your program, again, you see that we have 2 living recipients from the town of Abington, but we actually have 3. So I'd like to recognize Rick Franey, who is here with us. Kurt Power, who is not able to be here with us today. And I would like to add to the list John Beadle, who is here with us today. thought he was from Rockland, which we thought was a bit of a disgrace. But now we know he's from Abington, so we'll add him to our list. Now I'd like to, again, recognize the Purple Heart recipients who survived their injuries but have since died. And if you hear a loved one's name, I invite you to stand or raise your hand. Herbert Bailey, Carl Bombardier, William Billy Cox, Walter Fitz, Melvin Libby, Charles Mason, J. Edward Murphy. How come no one's standing? I know you're out there. No, you're going to be shy? All right. John I. Plummer, Russell F. Pierce, and Bill Ulwick. And lastly, but in no way least, I'd like to recognize those Purple Heart recipients from Abington who were killed in action. And once again, if you hear a loved one's name, you can stand or raise your hand. World War I, Edgar D. Bascom. Lewis V. Dorsey, for whom this American Legion post is named. Robert B. English. John J. Mahoney, Charles E. Murphy, Charles S. Myers. World War II, Charles H. Bellows Jr., Wendell E. Chamberlain, Lloyd R. Clapp, Roy E. Yelm, Wellington Jameson, John P. Keeley, Clifford R. Kimber, Richard L. McHugh, Harold R. McGeck, Frank O. Warner Jr. Vietnam, Richard F. Glinowitz, Glenn R. Gordon, Ralph G. Hamlin Jr., Ernest H. Laidler, Richard A. Fitz, whose wife is here with us today. And Afghanistan, Daniel M. Vasilian. Thank you to every single one of you for all you sacrificed for us.
At this time, I'd like to invite Kevin Donovan to the podium. He'll be sharing some information about the Murphy Club, the Murphy Field sign that will be unveiled in a moment.
Thank you, Kim. Before I begin, I'd like to explain a little bit. The Murphy Club Field is located up adjacent to the Center School, as many of you may realize, and it was named in honor of Chief Murphy, who actually, with the neighborhood children, helped to build the field, as it were. And I want to give credit, actually, to former Selectman Mike Franey, who came up with the idea of having a fitting memorial to the chief at Murphy Club Field, because there's actually nothing there. And his suggestion was brought forward to the town manager and to the veterans agent, and they were able to commission a plaque that we'll be looking at in a few minutes when Jack, his son, comes up and unveils it. But we thought it fitting and proper to do this today because both Chief Murphy was a World War II Marine and a Purple Heart recipient, and his son Jack was a Vietnam veteran and also a Purple Heart recipient. But in doing my research on it, and I'm a little bit of a history buff, so I've got oodles of Abington history at my house, one of the things I came across, I thought, rather than me try and go down point by point as to the chief's accomplishments and what have you, there was an article written at the time by our very own Kate Kelly, who was the correspondent for the Patriot Ledger, and I think she, as she did so very well and often, was able to encapsulate his entire history in this article, and I would ask your permission just to just briefly, let me read this article because it says it all. And the title of it was Walk Mirrors Chief's Life. Retiring Police Chief J. Edward Murphy took his last official parade walk a week ago along a route that symbolized many milestones in his life. Murphy, who has served as Abington Police Chief for 22 years, will go on vacation tomorrow. His retirement becomes official July 2nd. His last parade walk for Memorial Day began at the VFW Hall, where, as an ex-Marine, Murphy has found a lot of togetherness over the years. When the old VFW on Adams Street burned several years ago, Murphy was one of the first in town to organize a meeting to decide on what course of action the VFW would take. Within 24 hours, the group met at the Legion Hall and pledged to build a new headquarters. At the new VFW, Murphy often served as master of ceremonies at the Saturday night dances. His fame as an MC has spread, and he now often serves Island's Own as an MC for many occasions. Shortly after leaving the VFW, the parade passed near the Plymouth Street Little League Park. Murphy coached several local teams, and the field near the center school is called Murphy's Field. Along with the coaching and fundraising for youth teams, Murphy also organized ceremonies of the once famous semi-pro Old Town football team. After the parade passed by the police station, where Murphy has been the only chief to serve in the new station, which is gone now, built in 1965. Murphy joined the four-man police force after he got out of the Marines following World War II. Murphy said, quote, "Everyone said to get a civil service job. It meant security. Not much money, but security," close quote. Murphy has hundreds of stories about being a policeman in town, from accidentally handcuffing a youth to a telephone pole on a hot summer night, only to discover he didn't have the key, to the night he almost captured the Plymouth mail robbers. According to Murphy, he was walking the beaten North Abington Square on the night of August 14, 1962, when he noticed a large mail truck parked near the Bemis block. As Murphy approached the two men in the vehicle, one of them locked the door and motioned to Murphy to get out of the way. Murphy obeyed. Looking back at the incident, realizes now that by doing so, he probably saved his life. A few hours later, Murphy heard about the $1.5 million Plymouth mail robbery and put the pieces together. Murphy said he was first attracted to the truck because large mail trucks never came through Abington. If he had not backed off, he said, chances are the robbers would have shot him. Murphy's love of country and his pride of being of the Irish heritage lace a lot of his stories. He is regarded by the townspeople as being a tough chief who headed a department that controlled the kinds of problems that got out of hand in neighboring towns in the late 60s. And that is the truth. The final stop of the parade last week was at the honor roll of the youths of the town who served in wartime. Murphy's name is there on the World War II roll, but that was only the beginning of his career. Following the war, he returned home, joined the force, and spent a lot of time working for others. The parade walk symbolized a lot of Murphy's life, which touched many others. Murphy will be honored at a testimonial in September. And as I recall, I was working in the governor's office at the time, and I made the chief I presented the chief a proclamation at his retirement. And the two things that the article perhaps did not capture was, one is that when Jack Bailey began the St. Patrick's Day Parade Committee, the chief was one of the founding members of the second year that it had. A group of us got together, Jack, his father Eddie Bailey, Eddie Murphy, myself, Vinnie Griffin, and there were others I can't recall at the present time, to plan the St. Patrick's Day Parade that has become such a focal point in the community. And the only other thing I want to mention too is at the time, the VFW was very active, both, it was the place you went for if you had a retirement party or the like, and they had bingo and what have you, and their Saturday night dances, and they were very, very generous to the town. Back in the day, when you asked for a donation from any organization, if you got $100 or $200, you're doing well. $500 was unheard of. The VFW habitually gave to sports teams, to the fireworks. Their classic donation was $1,000. So it was through the chief's efforts, obviously through the Saturday night dances and the like, that was able to put back into the community all the good that came of it. So at this point, I'd like to ask his son Jack to come up. What we're going to do is unveil the plaque. I believe the wording is on the back of your program, but if I could, whatever you want. Do you want to say a few words first, Jack? Okay.
You know how you learn stuff in life, and I always forget things I learn as I get older, and never follow a politician to give a speech, because he just ruined my whole speech. I just have to throw it away.
No.
But I really want to start thinking, when you called me, Kevin, and mentioned that you were going to do the plaque and all this, and I mentioned it, I've talked to Joe Shea about it and Mike Franey, and I kept saying I'd like to put a plaque up there, or just a sign, and then when you got going, and you did such a fabulous job, it was written, when you see it, it's beautiful. Everything you said is accurate, and it's heartwarming, and my family is grateful. And it was, I remember mentioning to everybody, and then when you get going, when you get a hold of something, oh God, don't get in the way. And I want to thank Adam Gunn, the Colburns, and Scott Lambie for, I guess he got some funds for this program and the plaque, so I want to thank everybody, and especially the Colburns. They do so much for the veterans. It's just her speech Christie's speech on Memorial Day was, it was moving. It was one of the best speeches I've ever heard on Memorial Day, so I want to thank her. And I get nervous when I got here because I found out it was dead. So, and I want to clear this up. My father and we're both named John E. Murphy. I'm a junior. And my father was wounded. I got this out to make sure everybody understood. He has a Purple Heart. He got wounded in Kwajalein in December 5th, 1943. So, and one of the most famous pictures of all World War II, his gun team shot this Japanese Kate down, which is a torpedo plane, and the plane cartwheeled into the Yorktown, and it was in Life magazine in January of '44. So I had to listen to that all my life. On the way in today, I'm sort of a sentimental guy, even though I don't, most people think I'm a nut. But I drove down Summer Street where I grew up, from Walnut Street to Washington Street. It's a third of a mile. And there was something like, counting National Memorial Drive, there was something like 100 kids at the time in the 50s. And then I took my right, and went down by Cahill's house, Doc Whiten's house, and the field's right there. I looked at the field, and then I went by my other house where I grew up in 495 Washington Street across from Jack Riley's. Then I went by the center of town, which used to have Bailey's Garage, Erickson's, and Abington Fruit. And I was thinking of the past and being a little boy, and we used to go sledding on the hill from the center school. It was called Dead Man's Hill at the time, and the little field out back. And I'm going, geez, it was such a long time ago, but it was such a great time to grow up. Then I went by Jack Bailey's house, by Mike Franey's house, by Timmy Walls' house, by Officer Smith's house, down by Malcolm Whiten's house, and turned in here. And what really the theme I want to get is, Abington is a family community. It's so close-knit. The traditions live forever. My father played out here. My grandfather played here. My two grandfathers played football out here. I did. My brother did. And so many people in here did. And, if you look at the teams, some of the same kids are still playing today. You got Glenn LaPointe's family. Glenn LaPointe and my father played on the same team in 1937. And this is the original Murphy Club football team. Up in, I forget her name now, on Summer Street, right next to Batson's house. There was a field at the time. And all the kids in the front row are from Summer Street. And then you go down Vernon and Nash Memorial, you get Lee Taylor, and you go down to the Island Grove, you get Billy Farley. All these kids were in that little neighborhood. So I guess my father one day decided he wanted to teach him how to play football. So he got his sea bag out from the Marine Corps, stuffed it with some old rags and other stuff, and made it into a tackling dummy. And they went out back and they started tackling. And he had Frankie Driscoll and my brother and Micah Hearn and Jimmy Batson and Chuck Baglio and Joe Donovan's kid hit the bag, learn how to tackle. Then they decided to have a game, and they couldn't find anybody to play because there weren't any other teams in the area. So they went down, and Timmy Walls down at Plymouth Street got a little group, and they went down to Timmy's yard and played. And from there, it was expanded to the South Shore. The next step was Skinny Pastuzik, who was 103 this January. He got a team together from all the kids from Spruce Street and North Abington, and they started playing each other for a whole year. And then Whitman decided to get a team, and then Rockland, and it burgeoned into the Old Colonial Football League, which stands today. And my father loved football. He loved Abington, and he was really he did a lot for the town. He was someone that really appreciated growing up here, and he was good for the town. He was good for me, even though I got a lot of flack from my friends. But he was the type of guy that really liked kids, and he'd do everything he can to keep them on the straight and narrow. And he thought he was doing this with the football program. And some great athletes from here. Jimmy Kelleher played for my father. Bobby Bancroft at Whitman, a legendary coach. You have a lot of great athletes that still, that made their name in college, that played for him. So he's very, very proud of that. And he would be very proud of this, and I want to unveil that now. And then maybe Kevin could read it.
Yeah, and we'll just read it for you. It says, the Murphy Club Field, former Police Chief John Eddie Murphy, the date of birth, August 1st, 1920, date of death, March 13th, 1996, was the driving force to construct this field with the help of neighborhood children. Chief Murphy was one of the founders of the Youth Football League, which practiced here and was the forerunner of the Abington Midget Football Program. Chief Murphy was a former United States Marine Sergeant, serving in World War II, and was awarded the Purple Heart, and also was Chief of Police from 1963 to 1982. On behalf of a grateful town and a grateful nation, this plaque is placed to serve as a perpetual honor and reminder of Chief Murphy's dedicated service to the town of Abington and its children. And what we're going to do is, the Highway Department is going to affix it to a boulder and appropriately placed at the Murphy Club Field. So, very good.
Just to sum up something, I'm a Purple Heart recipient, and Chief Franny's here is also. And on this list is Ralph Hamlin was on a football team with me. We're good friends. And Richard Fitz was in the same high school class with me, and they're both Purple Heart recipients, and they both gave their life for their country. And it's one other thing I'd like to clear up. The kids of Summer Street did help out building that field. But I was asked to leave school one time because of some behavioral issues, so I got suspended for a week. So my father thought that it would be good if I painted the house. And after I started painting and I spilled the paint on the roof, he said, forget that. So he said, let's go over and I'm going to have you fix this field up. So Joe Monahan, who lived next to Dr. Whiten, and then Percy Whiten, and beside it was Joe Monahan. He had a ride-on mower in 1958. Not many people had a ride-on mower at the time. So my father said, we're going to have you go over and rake the place out, get the boulders out, and then mow it. So I spent about 4 days here mowing the lawn, cleaning up the boulders, picking up the sticks and everything. And my father said, have you learned a lesson? I said, I certainly have. This is the greatest time I've ever had in my life. So I actually was involved in taking care of the field and was the initial person that cleaned up the field. And then that fall, they practiced on it, and that became their practice field for all those years. And I think it's still used now a little bit. So I want to thank everybody for being here, and that plaque is special. I mean, I always thought it was just going to be a little wooden thing that, you know, with a couple of little paint and a little thing around it. I mean, it was really, really special. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. At this time, I'd like to invite the Reverend Dr. Coburn back to the podium for a benediction, which will be followed by God Bless America.
Oh, sorry. All right. So I invite you now to go in peace and live a life worthy of the sacrifices made for you. Give thanks daily for the brave men and women who we have named here today. And may God bless you and keep you today and always. In the name of peace, let us join together and say, Amen.
Amen.
This concludes our ceremony. Thank you for joining us. There's some refreshments back here in the back table, and there are beverages available in the lounge. So thanks, and hang out and share some stories.